If I can ask you to please take seats, we're going to commence our Board of Selectmen special meeting for Monday, February 29th, 2016. And you'll see there are two items on the agenda. The second item, however, for the MedCom agreement will not be taken up this evening. We are simply doing the Country Club of Woodbridge pool recommendation. And just to recap where we were, when the Board of Selectmen reviewed its budget recommendations at our last meeting, the issue came up about the fees for the pool at the Country Club of Woodbridge. And at that time, we discussed the possibility of having the pool be free or for some very nominal charge for Woodbridge residents. Since the pool was so heavily subsidized for the residents that used it last year, we thought there was a possibility of making it free for all residents. So since that last meeting, Tony Genovese, our finance director and administrative officer, has done quite a bit of study and research. He's worked with Anthony Taddy of the Recreation Commission to look at the numbers and drill down and see what it would look like at different fee numbers. And the Recreation Commission has subsequently had a meeting and has come up with new recommendations for us. So what I'd like to do now is ask Tony if you could walk us through these numbers, and then we can have questions for Anthony and Pamela.
So the information you have in front of you sets several different scenarios for you for pool operations for the country club. There's a summary sheet here, which has basically each one summarized in terms of net operations for the fiscal year, and then there's the details behind it, which is sort of the budget information here. The first set of figures for you is to give you a baseline is the what's currently in the Board of Selectmen's recommended budget to the Board of Finance, and that is the net operations figure of $54,000 deficit for the operations, or a subsidy, and that's outlined for you there in the first column. So the second column is for a reduced fee, which was recommended by the Recreation Commission, and those fees were also handed out to you and are attached to the information you received.
Did these go out today?
They went out, yes.
Yeah, they got them this afternoon. Yep.
Everyone has a hard copy. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So, and that is, I'll read those out. Resident rates would be a single resident 300, a couple resident 500, family resident 700, and then non-resident rates single 500, couple 600, and family 900. So that information is presented in full year for the Recreation Commission recommended budget, which is the deficit there of $33,894. And so what I did working with Anthony is to come up with how much it would, what would the cost and how much would the budget be for if we just did a half a year. When I say half a year, I mean just the summer of 2016, because the full year also funds the spring of 2000 into June 30th of 2017, because the pool year and the fiscal year aren't the same set of months. So so what we did was we figured out a budget based on the assumptions for the Rec Commission's recommended budget of what it would look like if we just had funding from through September, say through Labor Day. And that's the information presented in a reduced fee for half a year, which is the net operations of a deficit of $14,000. So so those are sort of the first three. And then we also, working with Anthony, came up with how much it would be if there was no fee for residents. And just for the half year scenario, it's $115,000 deficit, and a lot of that is in the part-time seasonal wages and additional supplies and chemicals that would be needed. Anthony could speak a lot about that. And so those are some of the options you have in front of you for your decision and discussion.
Are there any questions for Tony?
I have a few.
Sure.
So, on the first number, for the full year, Selectmen recommended, there's not details here, so, is that including towel service?
Yes.
Which we discussed, so that, we discussed that may be like a $9,000,
That's correct.
so that has it in there. So there's $9,000 there that originally we talked about possibly removing.
What line item is that in?
That's in 2 line items. There's first one is propane gas. So you could, and technical supplies is the other. Maintenance supplies, yeah.
So the technical was the $3,000 to replace some towels, and I think we
Correct.
estimated $6,000 roughly for the gas usage.
But what happened was there was $2,000 added for other items, correct?
Yes,
Right?
yes,
With the chairs?
yes.
Okay.
I'm confused because if I read the, I don't mean to barge in.
No,
but I
go right
figure
ahead.
we'll just-
Love it.
If I read the commission minutes, I think I read somewhere in there that the commission was recommending if reduced fees were approved, that there would be no towel service.
That's correct.
That's correct, that's correct.
So
So
where do
under the
those
reduced
numbers,
fee, under the reduced fee account,
so they come out of
the maintenance,
propane gas?
yeah, see the reduced fee?
So that's 4,000 coming out of propane gas
Right,
and 1,000 coming out of technical?
correct,
So that's 5,000 coming out?
right.
But
It's
I-
actually, it's more than that, but they added money back for towels. I mean, for other items, not towels,
Chair?
chairs and,
Okay, because I thought we were always using like a $9,000 figure for the
There
propane,
was
gas,
so-
and towel.
If you look at one of the items for propane, the propane tank at the clubhouse provides hot water for the clubhouse, and also it fuels the dryers. So in the other budget without the towels, I put in the 5 deliveries that it would be, roughly $900, so it would be $4,500 for hot water for the clubhouse. I know last time we were talking about items that should be in, should not be in, so I thought it would be better and prudent for me to put it in, so. And that's where there's still $4,500 in clubhouse propane,
Okay,
not be used for towels.
Joe, mind if, so in the
Yeah.
chair, so for the $3,000 that the expenditure would be for the new towels, you removed that, but you had to add $2,000 back because additional chairs that you would need, is that why it's only
Put
reduced
in
by 1,000?
additional, not lounge chairs, additional lifeguard chairs. Almost like an AZAC type
Station.
material, right, because with either option, whether it be free or reduced, we saw an incredible increase in people coming to the pool. So in managing the numbers for the capacities and those kind of things, I staffed the pool as if it was totally filled. So the additional lifeguard, that would be for additional lifeguard chairs.
I think the point that's being made, and it's a good one, I think, is that in the propane gas line, the difference between the selectmen's recommended and the full year reduced fee, if full year reduced fee does not include towels, propane should have gone down
Should be,
more
yes.
than is reflected here.
in the full year reduced fee one.
Right. Right,
I'll come to.
Yeah,
Right.
right,
yes.
that's where I was.
That should have come down by,
more than
A great deal.
$500.
Right.
yeah,
More
it
than
should have been worth like
$500.
$5,000 maybe.
We thought, anyway.
Well, that's what we thought, but I don't
And
know.
this could have been my error. I last time when I prepared the budget for the rec commission, some items we thought should not be in it. I just wanted to put all the numbers in. I don't know if that number should be in more of a clubhouse expense. I just wanted to put those numbers in there because those are true numbers that we're using for hot water, so.
Okay, but in the 4 columns we have, as I understand it now, the only one that includes towels is the first one, full year selectmen's
Correct.
recommended. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And if that is correct, there should be a greater reduction.
Correct.
In the second column. The
Should
second
be.
column should probably
Probably 7,000.
look more like Well, no.
Well, because he's taking out 4,500 and adding 2,000 back in, right?
No, just for the propane.
I'm saying just for the propane?
Why did, you said there might have been something you didn't originally include in the propane cost? Hot water?
When we first 2 years ago took over and managing the pool for the town, I did not realize hot water. I thought hot water was generated by the furnace. I learned of that when hot water ran out, and I realized that it was done by propane. So it was kind of a learning process during that year I was not budgeted for that. So running hot water. So that's where that difference in cost is. Now that I know what the costs are for at least 5 deliveries for the clubhouse, I made sure to put it in there. It would be significantly higher if we ran towels for July and August also.
I wish I was following that.
Does that mean that in column 1, if you included towels, that figure for
probably higher.
propane should actually be like $17,000? Is that what you're saying? In other words, I agree with Joe.
Yes.
Instead of these being reduced, that one should go up.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, maybe that's what you're saying.
Is that
Because there was a cost he wasn't originally associated with.
Because
Well, was it? But does that comply? And that may be, but now now I would have to back it into what's really in the budget. Is that
Correct.
what's in our budget right now? Is it 11,500 or is it 17? I'm sorry.
The budget is that's in your budget right now is that first column.
Those are the numbers.
Yes.
So that explanation doesn't wash out then because
No,
it's not-
but we may have made a mistake relying on Anthony's
original.
numbers.
Yeah,
That
originally.
it should have been
The original ones in there,
16 or
right?
17,000.
So that
That's what
should
it
be
sounds like.
17,500.
But the
Correct.
So
towels
now,
That's
cost you
so now we
20.
have a 60K loss.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, but
That's
the
correct.
other numbers hopefully are
Okay.
correct. And since we're
Okay.
probably moving off the first column, probably,
Yes.
the others, if the others are correct, that's good.
So my next question, Tony, that one I knew was going to take a little explaining, but the only thing that I don't have here, and maybe this will go to Anthony and to Pennell, is there's no estimate here of how many members they're guesstimating would be needed to get to these pool fees, both in the full year that we recommended, if it was at the original rates that were part of our budget, or obviously if it's a reduced rates, which are almost half, I'm assuming basically double the membership is needed. So can somebody tell me how many members this is guesstimating? We
Put in the revenue
have,
lines.
and we also don't actually have the numbers next to them. Might be helpful for me if I created a line of what we currently had last year. I know it was roughly 60-something total members, but I'm just trying to look at what they think is going to, how much it's going to increase by reducing these numbers. So is the estimate to be 150 members?
The minutes said,
Yeah, I saw
the
some,
minutes
but
said, the Woodbridge resident fees that Anthony and Bob came up with is 300 for single, 500 for couple, 700 for family.
Yeah.
Next sentence, 170 families would be needed to cover the budget. Is that
171.
number
Of the
2?
reduced-
Or that's number 2, right?
right, of the
Okay.
reduced.
171, is that Woodbridge, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have a question about that. Is that 171 total families, Woodbridge families? Because right now it's 45
Or
Woodbridge
additional
families?
And
Additional
60.
families, or what is the,
Total families.
all of it? And how many total did you have this past year?
We had 62.
62,
62.
okay.
Yeah, and so what's missing for me is how many it was, the original budget were $80,000 in pool fees. What was that estimate that we were gonna get about the same numbers last year? The original full budget at full price,
So
what
I
was the
can
guess?
clear some of that up for you. The budget request last year was about 160,000 roughly. Clearly, we didn't make that mark. We collected totally for fiscal year 15 rather, about 88,000. 80 to 88,000.
So the original 80,000 that was in our budget was around the same number,
So
maybe
that's
a few
why,
less than last
if
year.
you look at their request this year, it was upwards of 120, but when we did the selectmen's budget,
Got it back.
we lowered it to 80 to reflect what was actually collected.
The rec commission
But the rec
assumed
commission,
we would get the membership roughly equivalent to, not last year, but the year before.
Yeah.
I believe, the 80,000 is reflective of last year's
Correct.
membership. And what we assumed was, and understand, there's not any data that says when we reduce fees, this is gonna be the exact change. So we had to make an assumption that we thought was reasonable. And what we said was, we thought we should be able to get roughly double the membership off of what we assume we would have in our recommendation to you. So that gets you to the 119. We're basically saying if we reduce the fees, we'll get back to the same budget we had by roughly doubling the membership from 2016.
So I guess my question, panel, is the original budget that the commission submitted to us was, as Tony stated, roughly, I believe, 120,000 in revenue fees. So at that time, the Recreation Commission felt that based on some new marketing planning, some help from Casper and other assorted items that you had thought you could promote this year, that you were going to be able, at full price, to go back and getting the amount of members we had the previous year, which I think was in the 80s instead of in the 60s.
Correct.
So,
it was based on, oh, sorry.
No, my point being, if you thought you were going to get back into the 80-something at full price, what was the major change in that next month that made you believe suddenly prices had to be half to get back to the same revenue? Why did you think you were going to lose all those members again?
No, we were asked to look at, the commission was asked to look at lowering the, either making it free or lowering the numbers and what would the impact be. And so we looked at first the reduced fee, and what we said was we should be able to double the our assumption was to be able to double the membership we'd originally assumed, which got us back to that revenue. Okay, we didn't back off of, I mean, you guys reduced, and I find it reasonable what you did, but I mean, our original recommendation was 119,000 and roughly 80 resident members and whatever the non-resident piece was. And we're assuming now roughly 160 members under the reduced fees.
Tony, I don't think we second guessed that we could reach those numbers. I think the product that we have is a very good product. I think after the item was brought up of having it free for the pool, I think it was our charge to look at free versus what we had or versus a reduced cost. And once the item of free came out, I think it brought with a lot of discussion. And after we had discussions with Alan and Tony, and after I documented all that and I brought it back to the Rec Commission felt that they did not want to look at the free option, but once it was out, they thought that a more of a reduced cost would be the way to go. So it wasn't second guessing our original budget.
I guess what I'm fearful of is a month ago, the commission, the town felt it was possible to at least repeat the membership we had last year and possibly and hopefully get back to the membership we had the previous year, which was roughly about 20 additional memberships. Yeah. And yet you came up with a plan for it, a marketing plan, help from Casper and so on. And now that to me was at least somewhat of a known commodity. We felt if you were doing that, we were going to get close to that break-even area without taking a leap of faith and stretch saying, well, we're suddenly going to add 100 members. We were only talking about adding a few members back. But suddenly it seems to me to go to the reduced fee, and now we're saying we need to basically double our membership, even though it is a smaller cost to people. That's a bigger leap for me. It's asking me to think that the town is suddenly going to jump onto this. And I think it becomes a little more risky for us budget-wise, though the numbers are here based on projections and hopes. There's a lot more, it's a bigger number, so there's more room for error and there's more room for a loss. And I think the town, or at least from what I hear, is okay with a pool club was basically around a break even over the last couple of years if you add them together, and we were hoping to do that again. I think suddenly this option puts a little more fear into me because there's more room for error.
Which option are you talking about?
I'm talking about the reduced fee and doubling the membership.
Number one.
Well, either one reducing, but let's go the half year because we'll take it 1 year at a time.
Right.
But what I'm fearful is now we have to double our membership.
Right.
And it becomes more unknown, and certainly more room for error in the budget. We could suddenly have a 50 or 100,000 if things don't go well, where we thought we were close. I think as a board we thought we were close in the original budget without the tower fee, right, to a closer to a roughly a break even, and hopefully if they had had the kind of membership they had hoped for and they had a plan for, we would even break even or maybe make a few dollars. But this suddenly seems like we're taking more of a risk. It's a risk reward, don't get me wrong, there's potential for
But it's an
reward.
order of magnitude, there's no question about it. The variables have changed dramatically, and I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rec commission would say, we stand behind the budget we submitted. We also stand behind this new one. We looked at both, we think both are realistic, but we would agree, I agree that obviously there's more uncertainty and the budget would require doubling the membership.
Just one other point, I just want to clarify something that Tony said. In the original budget, that the one that the selectmen incorporated in our recommendations last time, it wasn't break even, it was
$50,000.
it was over $50,000 in the negative. Now that is after Tony adjusted
The revenues.
for the revenues,
Correct.
because Tony did not agree with the Recreation Commission's estimate on
right.
revenues. So that
Right.
what we actually approved was, would have required a town subsidy of $54,000.
Right, with
That's
with
what
the
led
towels.
to the idea
Right.
of maybe make it
Yeah.
free if we're doing such a high subsidy for so few families. I'm not disagreeing with your other points, it's just a fact point that I want to
Right,
put
well,
out there.
but factually, what my point was, what they brought to us was not 80,000 in revenue. We
That's
brought
correct.
that down as a group.
That's correct.
Because we said,
That's
let's be,
Be
just in
realistic.
case.
Correct.
Yeah, we took the worst case scenario, or at least a
Correct.
more
Right.
realistic view
Right.
of
That's correct.
And my thinking is, if they seem pretty confident that they can get back to the previous year's membership level, which would have brought it obviously much higher, and that is what would have brought it closer to a break even without the towels. And yes, they did add a few expenses since, but if you go to their original, well, if we go back to 80 some odd families, that revenue was almost 40,000 higher. I believe it was about 120 in pool fees.
Right.
So that was where we were basically about to break even.
Correct.
We started talking about the towels, maybe
Correct.
even being the difference.
Right.
Correct.
I'm just saying, from their original expectations to now, it seems like we have to go from 60 members to.
Well, the whole point is we're
180,
getting back to their
170.
original recommendation, but we have to sell twice as many memberships. Doesn't seem to make any sense to me. But, can I ask,
If I can make just one small point, though, to get to the 54,392 you're losing in the full year does not require a doubling of the membership. In other words,
No.
if we fall short,
Right,
you
right.
just-
Requires what you had last year.
For the half
Well, no,
year.
requires more by about, I can't, I want to be careful citing numbers without I can do them, but.
Oh, you're talking
it's
about
less
the
than
reduced
doubling
fee.
it.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, with the
Reduced fee is
reduced
less
fee.
than doubling it.
So just because I apologize for not being able to keep all this straight, but the rates, the unreduced rates, so the old rates, what were we going to charge for singles?
$700
For a single,
resident, for a single resident,
correct, and then couple resident,
1,000,
okay, and family resident?
1325.
And the non-resident rates, those have changed too, reduced?
Yep, the non-resident was $850
Okay,
for a single,
yep,
$1110 for a couple,
okay,
and $1,500 for a family.
thank you. So significant reductions.
And not to interrupt, one real quick question. The daily rate was $20, and you're projecting that 25 would be the number this year? The
Correct.
daily rate, okay.
Well,
If you, that's what's in their minutes, right? 20 to 25?
Yes.
but that's also a schedule of different levels, right?
For the daily
For the
rates.
daily rate,
There should be,
right,
right, we redid those, the rec commission approved those last week also.
right.
So presuming that, based on the net operations for the free option, if you will, and also the other issues in terms of capacity of the pool and capacity of parking and so forth. So presuming we don't like that option, what about the reduced fee with this significant reduction in fees and you guys proposing to double? Suppose you more than double. I mean, are we looking at issues with pool capacity and parking capacity just the same as we would if it was free? Have we looked at that too?
Well, I think that was part of our discussion, the rationale. We looked at the numbers. I had the task of looking at what the pool capacity was, what the capacity was in the pool area, what the
250.
ratio to lifeguards per patron is recommended. I had a nice conversation with Pam Scully, the head of pools at the state of Connecticut. So basically those numbers, we can fit 162 people in the pool at one time.
Right.
We can fit, according to,
Fire marshal.
250.
200, thank you, 250 people inside the pool gates, inside our pools. The ratio to lifeguards and patrons are 1 lifeguard to 25 patrons. The free option, well, there was a lot of discussion on all those items that you brought up, Joe. There was items on parking, there was safety, there was number of people. How are we gonna feel 500 people coming in the gates? Was Pennell going to be excited when I turned him away, when there's a limit, we're counting? And we thought there was a lot of, I think it was a great idea to look at. I think it showed a lot of interest on the people in the town to possibly drive more residents in our town to the pool. The rec commission felt though that a reduced rate would certainly drive more people. I think with the reduced rates, if we look at doubling our numbers, I think it's more manageable. I think I would be excited to sit here and say that we're at capacity for the pool, but there's a lot of things that we do have to think about. So we will drive more people. I don't think we're going to hit the capacity of inside the pool. I think we have an opportunity in front of us to drive more Woodbridge residents to the pool. And if the Board of Selectmen is looking in the future to have that's an option, then it's going to bring us some information. If we have 130 Woodbridge families at the pool this year, it's going to say to the Board of Selectmen that the town wants it. If we only have 60, then it's also going to give us some information. So I think it gave us an opportunity to look at that.
But you don't think we're going to have any issues with the park? In other words, 171 families. It's unlikely they're all going to show up on the same day. I understand, but
At the same
but
time.
at the same time, well,
They might if you give away towels though, so be
Right.
careful with that.
but the capacity is.
We didn't give them away, they took them.
Where did I see it? 162
In the pool.
162.
In the water, yes.
individuals, not families. Individuals
In the pool.
in the water.
A 5-by-5 spot.
In the water.
Yeah.
No laps.
250 in the area, 160 in the pool.
In the
Correct. And
fence.
that excludes the banquet tent.
So all in all, you don't feel that that'll be an issue with the reduced pricing?
No, and if it is, I really believe that we have to come in with a management system to manage that.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? Sure. Just the pool operations, do you have adult swim and child swim? And I knew you way back when did. Maybe that, I don't know. I remember when it opened you did, and then.
They used to have that prior to when I got to the country club about 18 years ago. They did have adult and child swim. I did away with that. I installed basically we have 2 adult lap lanes in there. When there's no adult swimmers, being an elementary phys ed teacher, I encourage the kids, students to play there. As soon as someone wants to come in and swim their laps, then the lifeguards move them out. So that kind of massaged that item right there.
All right, thank you.
I just want to say also, if you don't all know this, that the JCC is looking to open its pool on weekends.
It's outdoor pool.
It's outdoor
Yes,
pool,
outdoor
the
pool,
outdoor
yeah.
pool. So there's yet another competitor option, and just as we've talked about the impact of what we do on the Woodbridge Club, certainly we want to be a good neighbor with the JCC as we look at our pool rates, but we've been looking at this for the benefit of the residents. So it's a moving target of
And if
what's
you
the
don't-
right thing to do with the pool, for
If you
sure.
don't mind me interjecting to that too, there is another thought besides the other clubs and Paul Sutton. The last couple years there was no Beecher Road school pool option because of the work being done, and the pool is actually extra necessary because you were taking over at the country club many different groups and accommodating people who couldn't use the Beecher Road pool because of the work being done during those 2 summers.
Correct.
This year, got my fingers crossed, but I'm assuming our pool, Beecher Road School Pool, is ready to go for the summer, so you won't have as many of those needs for the people who are members of for the community residents who are members of the recreation pool, which is served over at Beecher. But I had one more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I've been comparing the budgets, and other than the propane, gas, and towels, the other thing that struck me is the full year requested budget. When I looked at the costs and the expenses to this full year reduced fee, Again, I look back at, our budget was based on roughly 60 some odd number, let's call it 60 members. Your full year reduced, according to your notes here, you were hoping to get somewhere in the 170 range. That's about a 200% increase. It's triple. It's almost a 300, but in any case, yet the cost, when I'm looking at it, you say it will cost you only 20% more for staff, and that very well may be, I don't know what kind of numbers it takes for the lifeguards. The ones that concern me is when I get to repair and maintenance, just about everything is exactly the same.
Maintenance and supplies.
And when you get to maintenance supplies, it's only a 10% increase with a 200 to 300% increase in people. Is that realistic? Or is there something there that, why do you not expect those expenses to go up much higher?
But just as a point of clarification, I just want to be sure I'm clear about this. In the original full year recommendation, was it based on the 2015 membership of about 62 families or the 2014, which was in excess of 80? Your point still holds, but it's a double revenue.
That's right, so 200 to 300%,
Yeah.
depending on which number you use.
It was the 2014 numbers.
The 119,502 in the original recommendation of the Board of Selectmen was based on the 80.
Okay,
So
so
not
it's still,
60, but
well, it's still
but a
between
big increase.
200% increase. I mean, you're still going to 170. So I guess, you know, yes, I can understand that maybe that you would have thought was a little lower if it was 60, but you don't expect a larger increase or any increase in some cases on the expense side, even though all those people will be.
Tony, I'd like to address that. Those are very, very good points. I think in the past several years, when we talk about repair and maintenance, we've, you know, at least Tony and I always talked about priority A, B, and C. If it's a safety item, it's an item that has to be taken care of. We've hit off a lot of repair and maintenance items. Would there be a lot of other repair and maintenance items at the club that we would love to do? Absolutely. But I think the money that we have in there right now, if we jumped, I know that was Pennell's point, if we jumped to the free, we would have to increase the repair and maintenance line item. And that's when he asked me to increase that. When you talk about the staffing, we had a lot of my assistants and myself and lifeguards spending lots of time doing towels. So there's really just a shift of where these staffings are, people are going to be working. So I wanted to be as transparent as I can be with the Board of Selectmen. And so instead of one of my assistants being the back folding towels and drying towels and bringing them out and circulating around, then they will be at the front desk in the locker room circulating. The staffing for the lifeguards, we normally already staffed 3 lifeguards on the main pool, 1 at the front gate. We do our best not to staff all the lifeguards on at once, so we stagger them in 5-hour shifts. None of our lifeguards work more than 5-hour shifts. So it gives me the opportunity when the pool is not busy to maybe bring in 3 lifeguards. And at 12 o'clock, bring in another 2 more. And at the busy part of the day. So I really think in staggering the shifts, keeping the 5 hours, it keeps our staff fresh. We also do our best if the staff is not needed, the staff knows that we ask them to go home. And it's a small thing, but last year we eliminated about $300 to $3,500 worth of costs from lifeguard shift to be prudent. And it's not being cheap to the lifeguards. They know this ahead of time. We staff for the pool to be used. So I really believe we could staff it. And there are certainly a lot of items. Just look at the country club building that we could fix. But I think we really could do it within that budget.
Well, some items, I assume, are stable regardless of the number of users.
Correct.
Yeah.
You turn the lights on, it doesn't matter whether there's 4 people in the room or 100 people in the room. You put chlorine in the pool, it doesn't matter whether there's 50 people in the pool or 100 people in the pool.
It's the size
right?
of the pool.
Those are
that
just
dictates.
stable seasonal costs, and I assume that's built into this,
Yeah.
right?
Correct. Correct.
You now know everything I know about pool maintenance.
And
which
as
is
to the
not much.
chlorine, it also hinges on like the golf season. If we have 3 weeks of 98-degree weather, it would make sense that there's a higher bather load, and then
Right.
it's going to drive the chlorine cost up a little bit
Right.
versus if the temperature is at 80.
Right.
So those kind of things. But we've already had that built in for that fluctuation.
So going back to 55,130 maintenance supplies, do you feel the 10%, only an additional 10% increase would be sufficient even though the projections are for many, many more families? Because some of the things you can maneuver with supplies as well, as far as, I guess supplies is the one that sticks out to me only because human nature says if you have 3 times the people, you typically need 3 times the toilet paper.
I think we're
And I think
already-
that's actually in there, right? Is that bathroom
Right,
supplies as well?
Correct, Tony. I mean, after taking over the locker rooms, we did increase the rolls of toilet paper. We have an outing of 150 people. So there's a small increase. I think the repair and maintenance on the pool is a given. We repaired some gates and those kind of things, and the pool feeders and those kind of things. I think we'll be sitting pretty good.
Okay.
Did the Recreation Commission have any inclination or recommendation with respect to staying with the original recommendation or going to the reduced fees? Was there any feeling among the commission members about which they would prefer to see or if it would be better for this coming season?
Yeah, no, actually, I think the commission in its motion, I have to see how it was actually worded at the end, but you said that we were recommending the second one for reasons of more benefit to more people. Not because we thought, we were backing off the first one, but we thought that the reduced fee provided a greater benefit to more people in town.
I don't see that in the
The motion
motion.
is hard to
Yeah,
understand.
It's not in the motion.
Well, obviously,
Is
these are
this
the
what you're looking at, Carol, down here?
these are the preliminary minutes, which haven't been obviously voted on.
Motion to recommend, should I read it?
It's like both.
It was
They're
a-
recommending both.
It was a
Yeah.
difficult motion.
I mean, if Pennell says that's what it was, that's fine. It doesn't say it here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I will say the feeling of the commission, I don't know if anyone else was that we were recommending this,
Reduced.
we like to,
Full year or half year?
solely for the purpose of the fact that it provided more benefit to more people.
I think also the JCC stole our slogan. I think it says, we listen to our members.
They borrow.
And I can't tell you, I mean, there's about 35 families in my head that were saying, I pay taxes on Woodbridge, I want their fees reduced. I'll come as a daily rate, but reduced. And when I saw that slogan, you listen to the members, I think if we reduce the rates, it gave us the opportunity, not that you're gonna listen to any comments that every person makes, but a lot of people were saying those, and hopefully drive more residents in Woodbridge to the country.
Do we have any feedback from the Board of Finance? Anybody who has weighed in on this? Does anybody know anything about it?
Their opportunity begins on Wednesday.
There you go. Okay. Okay.
So-
And is there, was there a discussion about the half year versus the whole year?
Not by the
Piece of it?
commission.
Why are we looking at half year versus full year? That's a
I'm
good
trying to
question.
understand
That's a good question. No, I understand that, but I'm saying
Right.
why, we've never done that before, so.
Yeah,
And
I
this
think
is
we're
always-
just breaking it out for us because we look at one season in case something's
Correct.
done
And
with
the other thing
property.
is,
Right.
when you voted,
In case something's
when you
done.
voted on the country club budget, that was voted with,
216.
correct, through
The end of
216.
216.
Okay, so this ties.
So this
into
is,
in
just sort of
case-
ties into that.
Casper's
That's why.
calendar year, this was fiscal year. The property.
I just wanted to be clear on
I
it.
know.
Well,
Getting harder and
somebody
harder.
said, I think it was Mr. Taddy that, or somebody said that, this is such a fluid situation that every time you have an opportunity to gather a little more data, it makes it a little bit better the following year.
Should
So
you-
in some ways, to tie those two
And should
things
you,
in together
and should
makes
you want to proceed next year with a pool, you can always,
Right.
if you have to restructure and use income from the pool to support the operation.
Right, it doesn't
So-
mean the pool can't open in 2017, it just means in this
No, no,
budget, this is as far as we're
I
going.
understand, so if we were to decide on the half year, that'll run from when?
Pretty much through Labor Day.
May
Okay,
something
from
to Labor
Memorial
Day?
Day.
Correct,
Whenever the
yeah.
pool- When's the pool open?
Whatever,
Basically Memorial Day. to
So,
Labor.
so June 1 or whatever through through Labor Day.
right.
Which is
Right.
September.
And if someone were paying the old way, which they would get more use out of the pool, right?
No.
No.
No, it's
Memorial Day.
still
We cut it
September.
off.
Same
They
thing.
cut it
Still
off.
same
They
thing.
cut it off,
Yeah.
yeah.
Season.
So
Who
it's
cuts
a
it off?
seasonal fee, really.
Golf course goes to
So it's really a
January.
seasonal fee. Because the pool's open
Correct.
again in the fiscal year. but they don't get any.
Right.
Correct.
So
It's
you
a
have to
new-
revisit all the rates.
So they never bought a membership on a fiscal year.
Never.
Right.
No.
Right,
No.
it's
Right.
just the goofiness of budgeting.
Right.
Right now, it's May 28th, 29th, and 30th. Then we do 3 consecutive weekends, not open during the week. And then Monday, June 20th, marks full-time through August 28th. And then after Labor Day, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we do 1 extended weekend after that.
And that ties in with the school schedule.
Correct, yep.
The
Beach River
weekends
School
versus
opens
the-
August 29th, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
And what we don't have here is the number for Selectmen's recommended budget for a half year. I think we can assume it's about half of the projected $54,000.
We would just have to go through
Deficit, it would be-
and identify which cost would it be applicable to which year. But,
Right, so maybe
Which months?
yeah.
about 20,000 in the red.
So I guess,
Anthony, if I could ask one more question, because you probably would be the one person to know this. How many members do you have signed up so far for next season, at whatever rate they paid based on last year? But do you have 3 members, 10 members?
Right now, I believe we have 2 pool and golf memberships.
2. Okay. So it's not a big number that we'd have to adjust for their...
We do have 4 people that received the benefit when we reduced the senior last year, and I kind of held them over it and say if they sign up this year, we would just reduce it, so we wouldn't have to discount, give them back the money this time. And right now, they're okay with holding on.
so I'm sorry, I got to add just one. So full year reduced fee, you guys are proposing revenues of 120,000, 119,500, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And then the half year 86,700.
That's right. The half year, I just prorate the 119 based on not. In other words, the revenue is the same thing applies where it's a fiscal year revenue. So if you only do the half year, I only count the revenues through Labor Day. So I have to prorate the
Okay,
revenues.
that's what I'm missing, because theoretically the revenues are the same.
I
Because
prorate
you're
the
selling
revenues
the same
because
membership, we just went through all that.
no, because
So-
Same time.
you have
So
to
there's more money
It's
in
May
there.
to September.
you have to separate cash flow from
Okay,
revenues.
but so I understand.
Yeah.
That's just when we say revenue.
Basically, I take the revenue that's received in, say, May,
Yeah.
and I have to spread that, and I do this every year in our audit, I have to spread it based on when the service is used.
Okay.
So even though the cash is received in May, it's not necessarily all recorded in May. I record some in May, some in June, some in July, some in August. So if the 119 would represent revenues coming in the following spring,
Right.
which we're not going to, if we don't do that in a half year, that's why it's just 86.
Okay.
It just basically takes the money and splits it up over
Yeah.
the months through September.
Is that clear?
Is that clear? It's
It's
an
because
accounting
of the
exercise.
calendar year versus the
Yeah, I
fiscal
get
year.
that, but we're still selling the same, we're gonna sell the same amount of memberships either way.
Right, some of the,
Yes.
okay,
Correct.
We're gonna get the same.
let me put it
money.
to you this way. Let me put it to you this way. If you sell some of the membership is going to go towards this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the part you're missing.
Yeah, okay.
So
Before July 1.
Oh, this fiscal year.
right,
Okay.
correct. It impacts this fiscal
All
year.
I know is there's more money coming in, and it's
Right,
not
and it goes.
showing.
It'll come into
So
this
it's
fiscal
coming
year.
into, okay.
Right, because of the dates he mentioned in May and June. The money will be recorded in this fiscal year.
And
Just like there are
likewise-
expenditures, for instance, uniforms are bought in the spring.
Yeah,
So
I see you don't
there's
have
no
it.
uniforms.
I got
Right.
it.
There's a pool opening, which is in the spring. So there's no pool opening on the general professional services, just a closing.
Okay.
That sort of thing.
And can I say, I mean, I don't know that it matters, but does any of these revenue projections include any rentals for the tent? Or it's only pool memberships?
It's pretty much pool memberships.
Okay.
I mean, I think I already have one bar mitzvah booked, I have one retirement party booked,
Right.
but those are things that people could change right now and say they're not gonna book it, so that does not reflect that.
So it doesn't reflect it?
Correct.
Refresh my memory, last year between, was it $3,000 or $5,000 in tent revenue for the pool club? Was that about right? Can I ask one more question of the board?
Sure.
So is it safe to say that as a board right now, we're looking at the third column only?
That's what it sounds
Yes.
like to
Yeah, I
me.
mean, can we at least agree that that's where we're looking as
Well,
far
yeah.
as
I thought we were gonna come up to.
our first option to look at?
Well,
That's what
that
basing
wasn't
things
clear
on.
to me if where people were going on it, but I think, so the first question is, do we want to do a half year? And I think that makes sense, it's what Billy Casper, so if we can agree,
Think
it's a
it's
half
3 or
year.
4.
And then it seems to me it's between half year reduced fee or half year at the same fee as last year. And, you know, whatever, is that your sense, Tony? to put
Well, yeah, well, exactly. I mean, a half-year no fee doesn't seem to be an option.
it? That I.
So,
that's
you know,
what
on
I
our
see.
columns, there's only 4, and the third one is half-year reduced fee. We don't actually have a column for
We don't have a column.
half-year selectmen
Exactly.
recommended, but I'm just kind of cutting in half, like you said before.
Right,
And thinking that we basically already did approve. We did pass that on, I believe, the other night.
full year.
We at least passed on, so
Full
that we had a
year.
placeholder.
Full year, but
Full
full
year.
year. Full year.
We had a full year, but
Yes.
as a
Wanted to do
placeholder,
half.
we passed on those budget requests to
Correct.
finance department.
Right.
Correct.
So what
Okay,
we
right.
are considering here tonight would be one of something different, which could either be a half year, one season, let's call it,
Right.
at the
That's a good way to
reduced
put it.
rate, or one season at the full rate.
Right.
Correct.
So,
That's a good way. to put it.
so to be able to cross-reference those, what, if we just roughly,
Mhm.
if you looked at the first column, because we don't have a half year,
Right.
what we have now, so.
Right.
So we're really looking at a net operations of, say, 30,000.
Something like
negative
that.
30.
Probably,
Something
something like that.
So you
It all
compare
depends
the-
on your assumption with the revenues. But
So
yeah,
say
with
65
the
to
80,
30.
then yeah.
Right.
That's
Well,
about
but we
right.
already assumed that.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
may,
yeah.
they may get more, they assumed more.
Right.
A lot more.
So,
About 30, yeah.
right, so we're looking at 30 versus 15. We're looking
Correct.
at double.
Right, correct.
Double loss for that one.
Right.
But we're looking at a much safer revenue number.
Amount of members.
I think we're looking at a much safer revenue number based on
Given
a
the
much lower,
experience.
you know, so when you look at it that way, yes, we could say 15,000, but we have the opportunity maybe not to if they don't hit this, if they don't double their members.
Well, as Pennell said, the assumptions you make, particularly on the revenues, are truly assumptions. There's just no way to know.
Exactly.
So
But
it's, right.
but the one we've already approved and Tony's back is reduced. It's a much safer revenue number is all. I think it's a safer speculation
We went very
than a
conservative.
speculation that says I'm gonna double
Yes.
my membership. So I think it's risky to try to say, if we're only looking at the dollars and cents, if we're looking at it because it's reduced and we're gonna provide a bigger benefit to
lot more
residents
people.
and so forth, that's a different story.
Right.
I think on the economics of it, getting away from what we've already approved, I think is risky, economically.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was in the minutes or somewhere I saw that Pennell asked the question, what's the goal? Is the goal to
Right.
make money, to break even, to provide the maximum benefit to Woodbridge residents?
Right.
And that's what we're weighing. This is, in some ways, largely a policy decision. I think we have the best numbers we can get given the uncertainties of this operation.
Right.
And I agree with you, Joe, the numbers heading for, 170 families when we've never gone above 80. That's a stretch. On the other hand, it's because we've been subsidizing to such a large degree the Woodbridge families that we even talked about this idea of making it free. Because, if we're subsidizing what was 45 families at between $500 and $1,000 a family, do we want to do a little more subsidy? It was a lot more to go free. That seems like we're not considering that, but a little more subsidy to make it available to more members with more risk. I think that's our decision.
That's really, yeah.
Right.
And remember, this is a recommendation to the Board of Finance. We don't know what they'll do with it, but it's uncertain budget numbers, and the policy issue, I think, is clear, but we don't know how many people will take advantage of it.
Yeah, the only,
Yeah.
the thing, you brought it up before, Alan, and I think Tony has in the past, in terms of the policy issue. If we reduce our rates that low, what effect does that have on the JCC and the Woodbridge Club?
There's that.
In terms of,
too.
if we're talking policy,
Yeah.
those are big
That's it.
taxpayers in town, and we're,
Yeah, I don't know, right. I don't think the JCC is a nonprofit, but nevertheless,
Taxes,
they're a
taxes,
good neighbor.
no,
And we,
taxes.
right.
But their business
Yeah,
is
certainly
here.
support.
Yeah,
Yeah, you want to
yeah,
comply.
it's a more complicated question than it appears at first
Exactly.
glance. So, I think it would be fair to say then that we are deciding now between full year selectmen's recommended reduced to a half year, or reduced fees at a half year. And again, I suppose one thing we could also do is look at the fees and do something in between what they were and what the rec commission reduced them to, which would mean you'd need fewer families to meet the target numbers, but of course you might sell fewer memberships. Again, that's just making those assumptions that nobody has a basis for.
Right, it's just more assumptions. And I guess
Right.
the rec commission, explored it pretty
Right.
pretty comprehensively, and your recommendation is the reduced fees, right?
Joe, when I walked out of the meeting last Tuesday night, I had about 10 texts from different people that they watched the meeting now. We're making it free to the Woodbridge residents in Woodbridge. People were excited about it.
I bet they were.
So I think we came to that point, and we looked at that, and the rec commission did recommend.
But you're recommending the reduced. I'm only saying,
are
listen, you
recommending.
guys are the
Correct.
commission, and we've gone
Correct.
through it, and
Correct.
They're gonna
So-
work it,
Okay.
they're gonna market it.
Is there anything
I have
else?
one more question, just a
Mhm.
quick. Panel, I just want to clarify, because I read it in the minutes, but a little unsure. And maybe, Anthony, you're best to answer this question. I just want to be sure we're not hurting Billy Casper Golf at the same time. The parking, I know on the weekend, when it's busy, parking is somewhat limited. You don't, and they haven't expressed any concern, or you don't feel there's concern that parking would be a serious issue for them to get the golfers in and out? If you were suddenly to triple the amount of families, or double and change the amount of families?
I think, Tony, if we double the numbers, it makes sense. Things will be tight. But I do know, if you look at the time that golfers go off, a lot of the golfers are there at 6, quarter after 6.
Yeah,
And
they're also
some-
there, though, finishing at 12.
Right, and I think the amount of people that come to the pool is staggered. I mean, you have
Yeah.
some older families and couples that want to come and do their laps, and then people with young children come in later in the day when the sun goes down, and so it kind of offsets. So I'm not going to say it's not going to be an issue. It's going to be tight when we have more families versus 62. But that will be something that we have to work through.
So is it possible that maybe the commission, sitting down with Tommy Miller of Billy Casper Golf, can maybe even talk about on weekends restricting some spots for either the golf or the pool, so that not everybody in that lot is from one or the other, that each is given an opportunity for at least spaces so that they can get people in and out?
There's the parking on the other side too, right?
There is, and that builds.
Is that part of the
Yeah.
230 spaces?
It ends up on the street.
Across the street is part of
Yeah.
the 230
Correct,
spaces?
Tony, right?
Yeah.
Tony and I did speak to Billy Casper, not about the reduced fees, but about the possibility of no fee and the increase. And we actually got 2 different opinions.
We did.
I think from 2 different people, but they thought that it could be tight at sometimes, but they could manage
They
it.
could make
And
it
this
work,
was,
yeah.
they could make it work. And this is less than, certainly, if it were free. So I think it's a good point, but Billy Casper is not overly concerned about this, as I understand it.
If we go to the half-year reduced price, I don't know how you guys feel. I'd just like to make it clear that it's this year.
Yep.
I mean, we don't know, we don't even know that we'll hit these numbers. There's a lot of
Correct.
unknowns. So I think it should be very clear to everybody that this is,
I
I
think
agree with
that
you.
sounds.
I
I think
think
that's a
sounds
very
right.
good point, because it
Right.
will be a real test, as
Yep.
Pennell and Anthony said, of interest, and, help us decide as we go
Right.
forward.
No, I
Once
think
these-
that's
So-
right.
I'd like to think it may encourage more residents to come, and try the pool if they haven't. I think that was in the minutes somewhere, someone mentioned that, and also, it may be affordable for more people, which will also encourage more people to come out, so, but it doesn't give us a $115,000 deficit,
right.
which item 4 would be.
Right, so although we only do this for 1 year at a time, in
Right.
any event, I think we can make that clear. So
So
I'll,
this half year means until September or
So
until
the
December
season- Labor
This is a
December.
full pool season.
Labor
A couple
season.
weeks after
season.
Labor Day or something like
Right.
that.
this year, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
2016 calendar year.
So when you're saying half year, it's really pool season.
Pool
Right.
season.
Full season, right, yeah.
It's,
What you
It's our
got,
budget
It
year.
comes out in August.
It's our
what you
budget
told
year.
us.
We're gonna go with the words full
Right.
season.
Yeah,
I will
approved our
attempt to
full year.
formulate a motion that that the Board of Selectmen will modify its budget recommendations to the Board of Finance to change the budget figures to the half-year reduced fee figures that we have, and that it be made clear that these membership numbers are for the 2016 pool season only. Does that capture it? If not,
I guess
Jerry,
so.
can you state it more artfully? I mean,
No, I don't think I can say it.
that's right. Is there a second?
I'll
But I
second
wouldn't
that.
want to attempt it anyway.
Okay, so just, I'm not restating the motion exactly, but just so we are all clear that it's what we have on our sheet as half-year reduced fee, and we're taking the fees that the Recreation Commission has recommended to us as reduced fees, and it will be for the full 2016 pool season, but not going into 2017.
Correct.
And just so I'm clear here,
No
what
towels.
we've
Yeah,
we've distributed
No
information
propane.
to the Board of Finance, but technically, yeah, your recommendation is by March 1st, I
Right.
believe is what it is.
So we have until
So this will
tomorrow.
impact the bottom line, the mill rate, the whole schedule.
So it'll go into the budget.
So I'll
process.
reflect this in the entire budget.
Yes.
Okay, that's my
We'll be
point.
crunching
Right.
tonight,
And-
crunching
Right.
numbers.
And you'll put the dryers and used towels up for sale.
Yeah.
For
We can do that,
eBay.
yeah. I'm not sure how much we'll get, but.
Anthony will sign the towels, and then we put them on eBay. Okay, is there anything else?
I just want to make
Yes.
one comment. This is a remarkable town. For volunteers and commission members and employees to spend this amount of time on an issue that really required some thought in a very short period of time,
Yeah.
to bring it to a vote, this is a remarkable town. And I just think that needs to be said.
All right, thank you.
Good
We'll
job.
put that in the motion so
Ditto.
we can vote on it. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Joe already made it, out the door.
All those in favor?
Thanks, guys.